Hello, music fans, and welcome to the very first episode of my new podcast, The Musical Experience. I'm your host, Gabe, and today we're going to be doing a deep dive into one of the songs that I've really been enjoying listening to lately, and that song is titled Knees. This track was published by the experimental rap hip-hop group Injury Reserve as their first single leading up to their new studio album, By the Time I Get to Phoenix, which was released just a few days ago by the time of this recording. Now, I myself have been a follower of Injury Reserve ever since their debut album, Live from the Dentist's Office, was released way back in 2016. I've seen their musical style evolve and diverge from the norm ever since then, and they continue to strive for a completely unique and subjectively unprecedented style of hip-hop that I haven't really experienced with any other collective. There's quite a bit of context that goes into the song Knees outside of just the music itself, but let's not waste any time and dive right into the layers of this song that tell a story all on their own. With the use of desperate vocals that are surrounded by a beautifully dissonant sonic landscape, Knees gives us a little insight into the internal struggle that comes from a lack of growth in life, regardless of the successes. The song leaves us with a daunting message: we must keep growing. Of course, one of the most striking elements of the song right from the start is the style of vocals that are used to convey an overarching theme of the speaker. The first line, "Knees hurting when I grow," already sets the tone of the entire song as something unusual, an aspect of life that not many adult listeners can relate to: growing pains. Very soon, however, we're introduced to the other layers of vocals that put the line into perspective and give us the realization that the feeling of growth is coming from a mental perspective more than a physical one. Listen closely to try and understand the background vocals that come in the very first verse.
And that's a tough pill to swallow, because I'm not getting taller.
The layering of vocals here is absolutely intentional. The lines, "That's a tough pill to swallow, because I ain't getting taller," are not only symbolic of the dark themes of the song, but also act as a shield to what seems like the speaker's internal dialogue. "I ain't getting taller" is just another way of saying, "I'm at a dead end, I don't know where to go." And "that's a tough pill to swallow" is a kind way of saying that perhaps the speaker is done fighting these feelings. He's giving up. At 104 in the song and beyond, we start to hear how the main vocals are used for instrumental purposes in a powerful way.
Take that. Take my baby, just take that.
Now, the vocals here have a very specific swelling quality to them, almost as if the speaker is about to break down into tears, and this certainly adds to the timbre of the entire song, creating a deeply sad and volatile environment. But then, listen here to the next supporting vocal that comes in that harkens back to a moment from the speaker's past.
Things I ain't growing in.
Oh, don't worry, you gon' grow into those, baby.
Who don't want mine, but ain't
Go
give me
ahead.
if I ain't knowing.
Just try them out. Just put them on.
I ain't all the time. I don't think I'm growing anymore.
We're introduced here to a new, female-sounding voice, perhaps a mother figure to the speaker, and clearly they're referencing trying on new shoes. This small line alone allows us to connect the thread from past to present for the speaker. He feels as though he can't grow mentally anymore, just as he stopped growing physically into new shoes when he was younger. And then, at around 2:22 in the song, we're introduced to yet another voice, this time from the late third member of Injury Reserve, Steppa J. Groggs.
But all these bottles that a nigga been killing got my stomach a little bit lower than it's supposed to be. Yeah.
The lyrics here are the most poignant and straightforward in the entire song, and they really start to open up the issues that the speaker's been avoiding. Obviously, there are many themes of alcohol and drug abuse throughout this verse, which seems to be the coping mechanism for the speaker's internal struggle.
This last one is my last one. Shit. Probably said that about the last one. Probably gonna say it about the next two. Fuck it, nigga, at least my dreads grew.
And here, for the first time perhaps in the entire song, we hear the speaker clearly singing. And this brings a sort of energy into the song that we haven't yet heard. A burst of life. All this to say that drugs and alcohol are being used and probably abused to fill the void within. Let's take a break from the vocals for a second to break down what I think is the more central part of this song, the instrumental layers. As we've heard from the beginning of this song, our main guitar is oscillating between two main chords. And I've located these chords at D flat major and B flat minor 7. First off, a very unusual chordal progression for a song in this genre, and also an incredibly dissonant combination. If we take these chords and put them on a keyboard, it looks something like this. We can see that most of the core notes in the chords stay the same, but we're left desperately wanting that tension to release through the resolve of an F-sharp major chord, or a B-flat major chord. And honestly, there's a lot of places this progression could go, but in the song we're stuck with these two unresolved chords that leave us with this gap, this space. And this space is not only present musically, but physically as well, when the chords stop in between the fourth and first beat of almost every measure of the song to be taken up by the vocals. The sound of the guitar as well has a dark and somewhat hollow timbre, which is why the percussion plays a vital role in filling up that space. Listen to the way that the ride cymbals and the kick provide that fullness and sensory overload that contributes to the overall sound.
Knees hurting when I grow, and that's a tough pill to swallow.
So, to this point, we've covered the importance of the recorded instruments in this song, but what about the rest of the production? Starting around 30 seconds, we hear additional layers of what sounds like MIDI kicks and hi-hats. The MIDI instruments appear void of any kind of rhythm or centralized beat, which adds such an interesting timbre to the song, as if it's unorganized, almost a frenzy of sound that gives us a window into the speaker's struggling headspace. The guitar and ride cymbals are an attempt at normality, while the MIDI elements are a glimpse of what goes on behind the scenes. So the MIDI elements here actually mirror the effect of the supporting vocals. They're masked by the main sounds of the song, but never fully drowned out. Another interesting addition to the production here is around 127, when we hear these repeating low-attack, high-sustained synths in the background of the timbre. See if you can pick them out.
No, we ain't got the green like that.
When we put this on a keyboard, it sounds something like this. The notes travel from D sharp to C natural to D flat, which seems like a weird little ditty, but is unquestionably intentional. Of course, we're ending here on the D flat, where the first chord begins, which makes it seem like the progression is going one step forward and two steps back. Right after, on the next verse, we hear a similar but more pronounced jump.
My signature don't match on that.
And on the keyboard, it's an F natural to a B natural. This is such an interesting addition to the sonic landscape in this song because, to me, it is again mirroring the internal dialogue of the speaker, trying to crawl out of this dissonant state but only falling back again and again. And finally, towards the end of the song, we start to hear the produced elements breaking down and deteriorating into this muddled, dark synth noise. Give it a listen.
And that's a tough pill to swallow.
What does this sound mean in the scope of the entire song? Does it represent the speaker's ultimate failure to grow? Does it represent death? It leaves a lot to the imagination, but certainly gives the listener a very daunting and almost spooky feeling. It's undeniable that Knees represents drug and alcohol abuse in a very unique way, but the song also differentiates itself from others in the Injury Reserve discography by using a combination of vocals and instrumentals to tell what may be a very personal story. If you're interested in exploring this song further, I would recommend looking up the life and work of Jordan Groggs, who tragically passed away in the summer of 2020, and also watching the music video for Knees that helps put a lot of the verses in Groggs' perspective. Once again, I'm Gabe, and I hope you all enjoyed this deep dive into Injury Reserve's Knees. You can support me and contribute to this podcast by joining my Patreon in the link in the description below. You're listening to The Musical Experience, and until next time, keep enjoying music. Thank you.